Welcome back YouTube. It's been a little pause since my last junkyard find classic video, and today, so you forgive me about this pause, but actually I was pretty sick. I'm going to do a special Toyota, but actually a special 3 Toyotas from the peak of the Toyota car reliability, the longest lasting Toyota cars ever made. Maybe the Prius also is just as good, but these cars from the 90s, Corolla, Tercel, and if you can see, I'm going to walk to that first generation Previa minivan, an unusual car, at least unusual I could say. Central engine, we'll see it in a moment. So it's going to, I'm not sure how long is going to be this video, but you may want perhaps to thank, and I have to say that this is a very rare view. We are in 2022. Just my memory, this car was sold around 95, also 95, and Previa I think was sold from maybe 90 to 90 something, early 90s. So we are talking about 30 years, almost 30 years old car, and we are in Quebec, Canada, which means harsh winters, lots of salt. That tells you that we here in Canada, at least in Quebec, we don't see this old car on the streets like you perhaps may see them in California someplace. Okay, so it's just mostly going to be a tribute for when you read on internet, you read oftentimes about cars, car reviews, those YouTube videos, they are going to say even today the legendary Toyota quality and reliability. These models, it's what caused that saying, that legend, that line. Exactly these models. Actually, this is perhaps the second generation of Toyota. Maybe there have been previous generations, but also the generation before this one. I think I have a video on me. I'm sorry, that's the scrapper starting to work right now, so it's going to be a little noisy. But I think I have a video about the generation before this, not Corolla, but Corolla. And the previous generation was also an excellent, very reliable car. This is again also the second generation of infamous Tercel. There was the first one. However, the Previa, that's the very first, to my knowledge, generation of minivan car. And the rest of the previous generations came afterwards and were quite different than that first one. I will, perhaps you already see in my videos that I am trying and hopefully succeeding in being honest when I say something, when I talk about cars and maybe even other things. I'm not going to tell you that these were cars that were fun to drive or that had nice interiors. That, in my opinion, and even considering the time these cars have been put on the market, it's not something I would have said back in the days. Not fancy interiors, perhaps the Previa it's just different, but these econo boxes, we call them econo boxes, is not a luxury car in any aspect, although I have to pay tribute, not the Tercel, but this Corolla. This is, in my opinion, a timeless design. The shape of the car, exterior shape, even today I would not be surprised to it's a bit imaginary, but to see a new car looking not much different than this one at the dealership, it's just timeless. It's perhaps just like those BMWs from the 90s, Mercedes from the 90s, E-Series, C-Series, not as fancy out as those ones, even as the Accord perhaps, or Honda Civic from the 90s didn't really age that well shape-wise, but the Accord did, and also some Legends. Remember, Legend was the higher trims, higher models of Toyota. Those cars had really aged extremely well, in my opinion, from a design, exterior design point of view. Even that Previa, we are going to walk to it, and you will see that design, doesn't look old. Tercel is not the same thing. And this car was actually meant to be not expensive and very trouble-free, reliable if you want. I'll show you the mileage. Also, we are in Canada, it's kilometers, but I'll try to translate in miles for you. I want also, before I start the actual review, perhaps to thank one of the viewers. You see, I do these reviews and people say, oftentimes they put comments and say, yeah, it's cool, I had this car, it's fun. But there was someone in one of the reviews, I don't know which car was that, who said recently, maybe 1 week ago, something like this: hey, why did you stop doing these junkyard car reviews? And I just have to confess with you people who are watching these videos, that kind of comment was like touching for me, because it was, wow, someone is really following this series and it's like, it's enjoying it. So that kind of motivated me to come back again, the junkyard, and hopefully I will keep coming back again and find more cars. It's also a matter of luck, and I can, just like I was saying before, today it's unusual. This is the very first time when I could see so many cars that I could talk all together. So this is a Tercel. You can say that in the interior, I'm not going to sit because the window has been broken and there's glass on the seat. And by the way, this glass, people say they don't cut. Actually, they are very sharp, so be careful when you broke a maybe not windshield, but a side window. There's tiny glass particles, and even these bits are not exactly safe. So, especially if you have a child in the back seat, be careful, don't get this into his eyes. Anyhow, so let's look. This is kilometers. Maybe let me just clean it, perhaps. And it looks like it's 303,000. So that's going to be around maybe 200 something thousand miles. Not a lot. And I can say that these cars, when I see them, I still see them driving around my place. Not many, very rarely, but I do still see them driving around. Oftentimes are very low or low mileage cars. Most likely from very old people that just kept their cars from their 50s, 60s up to 80s, 90s. You know, that old grandma who is really, her face is right here, two hands, it's like she's keeping a hot coffee in her hands, driving slowly. These are the cars that did survive. So it's not exactly 1 million miles on them. Now, interior, this Tercel, I was saying, Tercel was supposed to be a cheap and trouble-free car for a long time. Not that when we say reliable or trouble-free, it doesn't mean you don't have to replace parts. Parts do wear, and Japanese do have oftentimes very not very lasting bushings, all that is rubber around the suspension and steering components. This must be replaced at some point, but it's just that the engines were perhaps not as troubled as other cars. I do remember Honda also was pretty reliable, but not trouble-free. It's perhaps a little bit of a myth. They did have problems, but not so many problems. Now, one of the things that you want to look at these engines, one of the things I do remember from my Civic 91, which is perhaps the car I did love the best, is these cars had cabled acceleration and cabled throttle body. No such thing as electronic throttle body back then. So when I will pull the gas pedal, this is the butterfly flap that will mix the air, it allow a certain amount of air, and you also have an ejection someplace, but this will just inject, if you want, air in the engine when you press the gas pedal. Let me just put the car like this, and let's try to press the gas pedal for you. Be patient with me, this is just live. So right now, pressing the gas pedal, that's your acceleration. And I hope you heard me. So this is your acceleration. And what's interesting and what's been lost, I think, in modern cars with electronic throttle bodies is that This, because it's cabled, this is the cable that goes to the someplace. No, this one is the cable that goes to your gas pedal. This, what's different than modern cars is that this was instant acceleration, instant engine response. I'm not saying instant like drag car response or something like this, no, V8 response. Any engine will just give you instant response when you touch the gas pedal. And we have lost that thing today, I think, in many modern cars. Otherwise, the engine is just the same as modern engines. You have oxygen sensor, you have the injection. The one thing also that is different, this is the transmission. The one thing that is different and is still available on this car is that the ignition, it's done with, I think these are, I don't remember exactly how these were called, but you have a distributor. So basically the engine spins and it touches the current sequentially, one cable at a time in a certain sequence, sends the spark to each cable, and this is just sending a spark. There is no bobbin at the top, there is no coil at the top here. That's how you send the spark in a certain sequence from the engine. And these distributor caps were oftentimes quite problematic, not exactly very expensive to replace back in the days, but this is the technology. It doesn't change anything in the way the engine drives, basically. I'm not sure why they changed this technology to the coil plug, but yeah. And then you have the injectors, just like any other engine. So it's really nothing other different than the cable and the distributor unit. You also have the battery and also other things. So yeah, interior in the Corolla. Maybe I would sit in this one. Let's just take my bag off. In the Corolla, I'm curious about the size of the car, and I can say I'm not perfectly comfortable. See my right leg. I'm 6 feet tall by 6 feet tall. By the way, 183. So the seat obviously is all the way back. It's not perfect comfort, but I can say that is not that bad, and that more quite a few modern cars that are the same size, comparable size, I would have perhaps even less space at the pedal. If I remember, I did drove a Yaris first and second generation, Eco and Yaris, and I do feel like in the Yaris I had even less space, and those are cars from the 2000s. So those days the cars had actually quite interesting space, and I do show this in other vehicles from this era as well. Now, no, it's, oh wait, is it this? This is soft. Oh no, I cannot believe it. It's kind of a hard, soft plastic. So it's not really hard like a windshield, but I didn't expect this. It's kind of, maybe it's a hard plastic that this softened after a few years. No, it's actually, I can squeeze it. It's incredible. Anyhow, so it wasn't, I didn't expect this. I can see that the shape here, this is kind of annoying. This is a thing from the 90s that you try to put things in there, but it kind of cuts the design to this hole to put a couple of whatever you coins or whatever. But I have to say that the dash here, and I'm sorry about the tercel, but the tercel, well, okay, I'll film the tercel inside as well. The dash has kind of a shape that, in my opinion, has been lost in modern cars. It has it gives a sense to the interior of the car. It has not a character, but it has something, I shouldn't call this artistic, but I think in the 90s and even in the 80s, the designers just had, sorry to say this, I think they had more brain. It's just more pleasant to the eye. Even cars from the 70s, Italian cars and stuff like that, it just had a line in the dashboard that it's just it's almost artistic, I would say. And today I don't think the car makers care about that. Look at the older dash of an old Mercedes from the 80s, sometimes even from the 60s or something like this. Even an instrument panel from a 60s Mercedes is just almost art. They did care making something, attractive and almost friendly somehow, something that it kind of makes you attached to the car somehow, emotionally speaking. And today it's no longer like this. They try to make some fancy dashboards. Mercedes put those vents, round vents around it. It's no longer has it's a style, but it's not I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It doesn't have character, in my opinion. Okay, so interior, I can say that I'm not surprised, because I did spoke the same thing. Oh, so it's a 97 Corolla manual. I did say the same thing about old Civic car seats. It doesn't have good support, lumbar support, but the seat itself, although it's simple, and quite frankly, this one has 220,000 kilometers. Let's call it 150,000 miles. So not a lot of miles. The seats are in perfect condition, but they are comfortable. It's a comfort that, it's a simple looking seat that has comfort to it. Not a modern Lexus comfort, but it's exactly what I've said in other videos for car with same times, same era. This is an art, the ergonomy of the seats, an art that has been lost. The car makers today just have no clue how to design propeller seat in many modern cars, even more expensive ones. All right, so as expected, it's sitting pretty low to the floor. I don't know what about the rear space. It doesn't look too bad. There is a lot of good visibility all around. This is very typical for the cars of those times. But the downside is that these A-pillars were very weak. The structure wasn't really strong in crashes, especially at Toyota. Look how thin this thing is. It's like putting my fingers on the side. Now, you don't want to crash with this car. The dashboard, it's extremely, I think it's the most simple looking, basic, and yet is not bad looking, is not good looking. It's just what I will call the extreme of a practically looking instrument panel. It's absolutely practical, and it's almost a perfection of simplicity. It's the first time I've seen this from close up. It's bare minimum. I guess there will be some lights around, but it's very simple and clean looking. Perhaps a little too simple, but it's fine. I wanted, if you look on my, I do have a video about Honda Civic in the 90s, EF Civic. And one of the things I forgot, and I regret forgetting to talk about in that video, was the stalk feeling and design. This one in Toyota is not as good as the Honda, but is the same idea. Bear in mind, these all are Japanese cars. It has a feeling to it. It has a, I don't know how to describe this. It has a smoothness, but also the surface and the color, the black plastic on it is just different than most black plastics that I can see in cars. It's just smooth, pleasant to look at it, and just nice to touch. It's crazy. You don't understand what I'm saying here, but it's just nice to touch. Look at this. It's just nice. It's smooth. There is no wobbling. There is no grabbing. There is no friction. It's like a Swiss clock, you know, a Swiss watch, wristwatch. It's just a different thing. You don't see these things today any longer. Unfortunately, another art that has been lost, in my opinion. Okay, let's just there's a rear view mirror. Maybe let's try perhaps the rear seats. Yeah, no, it's not enough place for me to sit in there. Perhaps with the front seat more forward is going to be better. Oh, trunk, wow, it's impressive. It's quite impressive. Yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all. Same. Yeah, Tercel trunk, it's smaller obviously, but it's still very nice. Yeah, I think the plastics gave up at some point. We just grab my bag and check the Tercel, and then we are going to go for the Previa. Tercel, I don't know the size, perhaps is that a 1.5, I would guess. perhaps, and the Corolla is going to be 1.8, all 4 cylinders in line, of course. We are in Canada, so it's going to be automatic transmission. Yeah, Tercel steering wheel, it's soft plastic, but in my opinion, it has a cheap, practical look to it, but it's not exactly fancy looking. Again, you see those storage areas, which I think they break the design of the dash. Perhaps, let me just approach. There's this kind of cloth or fabric, there is a print on it. It's not dirty, it's really a print on it, but I cannot really reach. I'm curious. Oh, this is soft. Wow, I cannot believe it. This is soft. It's soft material. No, this is hard. This is soft in a cheap car from the 90s. Wow, let's see the dash. No. This is Crane skull hard plastic, so didn't get the same treatment as the Corolla sister or brother. Yeah, get the idea about the interior. It's again very bright, very good visibility, except maybe for the C-pillar, but other than that, this is typical for the cars in that time. So okay, let's just go for the Previa right now. The dashboard, it's less inspiring that in the Corolla is dirty, but I can tell you it doesn't really look that great. Let's just go for the Previa this part. We are in Montreal, Quebec. It's the Can You Pull junkyard in Laval, which I like because access is not that difficult. By the highway, I come here usually in the morning, coming from Montreal on the 15 North. There's no traffic, and when I came back in the afternoon, usually again I go against the traffic. So Previa, I don't know exactly the history of this vehicle. I think, you just allow me to just take a little bit of water, but I think there may have been, if not the same lineup in Japan, previous models of this one, but I think the Japanese had quite a long history of this kind of utility vans even before this model. So maybe if you look in the some Japanese videos, you know, there are sites who sell all Japanese cars with very low miles. Maybe you are going to see previous models of this car. At least in Canada and North America, I believe this was the first model on the market proposed as a family car, if you want. And unfortunately, this one doesn't have the glass panoramic roof. I believe, if my memory is not failing, there was one option to have glass roof, front and rear, not necessarily opening, but that gave the car a very interesting impression. This one, what you see here, is the climate unit that has openings towards the front and the rear. Very interesting. So I guess the air vents, oh, here it goes, the air vents come in the pillar here, and perhaps you can tell that this is the driver's seat, which kind of collapses like this, and this is the engine. So this car had a central engine. Well, I would say perhaps not really central, kind of a front central engine. You can tell the throttle cable. So let me just press the gas pedal and see the throttle cable actuating the throttle body. So right now I'm pressing on the gas pedal. Instant acceleration. Wasn't a powerful engine. I would guess this is going to be coolant or oil. Someone perhaps, it looks like coolant lines. There is the dipstick right there, what appears to be the dipstick hole. I'm not sure where's the oil refill. Who knows? There's other equipment here. I never owned these cars, by the way. This must be the switch for the seat. It's just that I did read back in the days. I did read quite a few reviews, you know, those magazines. This is what looks to be the transmission dipstick. So transmission is going to be behind the engine there, but I'm curious. Perhaps I will guess this one Yeah, I don't know. Don't think it's the oil. I'm just curious, where do you fill this thing with oil, engine oil? Okay, so let's just hop in and just bring my bag a little closer so it doesn't start working by itself. If you are in the junkyard, I did see people carrying their tools, and sometimes they leave their tools alone and then go further away. Pay attention, not everybody it's a thief here, but you don't want yourself to regret it later on. So let's just film a little bit from behind. It has a shape that is very different than the modern models or all modern minivans. It's really round like this. I'm not sure how to describe it, but I still think it's a shape that makes sense today. Just small modification, and I would not be shy to put this car on the market as a new model from the design point of view. So you can tell perhaps it's just one side door. I think it's Chrysler who put the first two side doors, if my memory is good, with their minivan. But here there's only one door on the right side. Pretty large, pretty large, quite large door on the driver's and I guess also on the passenger side. Let's see if the seat can move backwards. No, I'm tall, so I need to make myself some place. And yes, I think the seat is quite high sitting actually, and that's also thanks for the engine, which you can tell it has a bump into the floor, so the seat is quite high. There's a handle here which I like. Not a lot of space between my legs and the steering wheel. I would say axis is average. Other than that, it looks really, it's tight here. Maybe the steering wheel has an adjustment tilt. Yeah, I guess it has a tilt. I would say it's interesting inside. It looks a little bit like a spaceship. It's a design that perhaps some people are going to call weird and excessive. I'm just trying to figure out, this is cup holder. I'm trying to figure out if it's going to be kind of a design that is getting, you get attached to it, that is getting pleasant in the long term. Perhaps, I would say this front bump of the center console is kind of a little too big. But yeah, you see we have air vents right there, quite big side mirrors, which is always a great thing. Manual windows, do you know what that manual windows is, people? Yes, it's manual window time. Oh, look at the shape of the window. Look at this. It's irregular because it's following the shape of the frame here. So yeah, call me retro, but I don't hate this. I actually like having a manual window. The problem is that you cannot reach for the other when you want to vent your car. But it does have electric mirror, side mirrors. Okay, so it's kind of perhaps the dash, it looks slightly like a spaceship, kind of maybe Enterprise Star Trek thing. Oh, you have a digital clock. Yes, this is a digital clock with kind of buttons, adjust the hour, the time. This has to be the light, courtesy light. Oh, this kind of looks like it's maintenance, 149 kilometers in 2012. So 10 years ago it had 150,000 kilometers, which about maybe 90,000 miles or so. This is another service. The car itself has, wow, it's not a lot, and I can tell you, unless it was neglected, this engine, it's almost broken in, is going to be not even 1/3 of its lifespan. 190,000 kilometers, 120,000 miles. Definitely not a high mileage car. Obviously it's going to be automatic, and it has a shifter by the steering wheel. Who doesn't like this? I'm not sure if I can shift it. No, it doesn't work, but I like this thing. Look at here. I can step up and just walk and go to the rear seats. You have kids in the rear seats. Maybe some child wants to come to sit with you. It's amazing. This space here is just brilliant, and obviously it has disappeared in modern cars. So it's so sad. You can, if you remove perhaps this storage bin, you can just walk to the other seat. It's a lot of traveling area, I would call it. Dashboard, it's interesting. I will say it looks quite the same simplicity as the Corolla, with obviously a few more gauges. Not exactly attractive to the eye, not annoying either. It's kind of, I would say it's too simple for my taste. Yeah, a few controls here and there. Decent space at the pedals, decent space. It's okay. I wish the seat was maybe this much backwards, but it's okay. It's not going to be uncomfortable, but it's just missing some space. Inside, let's just rotate the camera so you can see the windshield. It's big, it's very big. There is not a lot of pillars here, obviously. In a crash, if I remember well, this car wasn't that poorly rated in crash, but again, it's an old car, so for those times perhaps it was decent. Today's standards is going to be a different story. So anyhow, visibility is very good. You see this mirror is huge. This is huge. Look at this mirror. Have you seen something like this in modern cars? It's big. It's really big. Big windshield. So let's just spin the camera so you get an idea. I realized I had my hand on the mic, so hopefully it didn't change much my voice. Anyhow, so I was saying, let's just spin the camera around like this so you get an idea, because this car inside looks literally like a fish tank, like an aquarium. The amount of glass, obviously you have rear pillars which are thicker, but the amount of glass here, it's shocking. It's just shocking, and this is absolutely typical for the cars back in the days. We no longer have the rear seats, but I guess this was a 7-passenger car. Yeah, absolutely. It's just, I don't know. It really looks like you are in a tank, a fish tank. Not in a bad way, in an amazing way that it's no longer possible today, because a pillar for security, safety reason have to be much thicker. They also use stronger metals today, but even so, they really need to thicken these parts to save your life, to save your skin. And look what happened. And this is fun, but it's quite to be expected. The door got kind of stuck in there. Let's just try again. No. So door stuck. This is one of the things in junkyards. So let's just prove that I was right when I was saying that this is easy to walk around in this car. I'm going to, yeah, the roof, obviously it's a bit low for me, at least as a tall person. It's a bit of gymnastics, but I can do it. I can really come here. I'm going to sit here, and look, the trunk space also appears to be quite impressive. Let me just give you a view from the rear seats position. Again, these are the vents, top vents. Controls, easy to operate. You can close the vents, actually interesting. Perhaps not close, but at least flip them. There's no other controls here. The rear, just speaker, storage. Yeah. Okay, I think I I think I did put my hand again on the mic. I need to practice this a little bit. So if you didn't hear my voice properly, I just went from the front seat here. The ceiling, the roof is not tall enough for my size, so I had to do a little bit of monkey work, if you want, just gymnastics to come here, but it's possible. And this is the view from the rear seats towards the front. I have to say that this specific model has a great plastic, which, by the way, this is soft here. I'm not sure if you can see it. It is soft, not very soft, like not sinking, but it has a soft surface. Now, this gray plastic is absolutely not necessarily my favorite color, interior color. Maybe in a tan, it would have looked much nicer. And like I was saying at the beginning of this video, I do remember seeing, at least on YouTube, internet, a big panoramic roof that were not opening, would not open, just really two roof, big glasses, which I think, if that's correct, would have give a lot of light inside here and really make this car enjoyable and also memorable. You know, kids do remember your car. If you had you don't have to have a high-end Mercedes or something like that, but kids at certain age, they do remember your cars. They do remember the color of the cars. I did once ask my kids, one of them said, "Oh, this is an ugly car," and I asked why, what's not to like about it, and he, or I don't remember which one of them was, he or she said, "It's black color, I don't like the black color." So if it's possible, children at least a certain age, they like lighter colors, so maybe that gives you perhaps a suggestion when you buy another car. All right, so this is a tour. I'm going to pop the hood as well, but yeah, this is surprisingly easy to operate, surprisingly easy. And I do remember there was a new car on the market, I'm not sure the brand, that will break the cables for their electric side doors all the times. Not with this unit. Again, a very reliable car, obviously, even despite the central engine, which is not easy to access for repairs. It seems there wasn't really a problem of design. Wipers, very interesting. Side moving, and with the spray windshield fluid on the wiper itself. It's quite characteristic for this car. Let's just pop the hood because we do not have an engine here. I'm going to keep it. I could not find the that bar to lock it in place, but this is your brake fluid. Who knows what this could be? Maybe. No, I'm not going to advance. I'm not sure what this is. Air filter box, air intake. That's climate unit controls. Blend doors, perhaps. Another, perhaps coolant. Oh, here's go. This is the engine refill reservoir. Interesting, right? A reservoir for your engine oil. Very interesting. It says engine at the top, and obviously the windshield reservoir. So perhaps you wanted to pay attention, maybe not being condescending, but not let your wife refill with windshield fluid. Maybe she would put it in the wrong place. Yeah, I would be slightly stressed. Not saying all women are the same, but there are also men who don't have much clue about these things. Yeah, this is, I would say this is at least a weird placement positioning for this to sink. I would at least separate them, especially it looks to be a place here, an empty space. And this is the wiper motor. Interesting design. Not difficult, you see the linkage for the wipers, not difficult to access and replace if needed. Alright, you have the radiator, obviously. Okay, so this is a preview of first generation. I think it's quite a symbol for Toyota, and I didn't have one. Perhaps quite an achievement of also, yeah, a car to remember somehow. All right, thanks for watching.